Welcome back to another episode of the Bleav in Georgia Tech podcast. We are your co-hosts. That is RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell. We did not come to you with an instant reaction on Saturday, but even after a big game, I had to hop over State Farm Arena to cover the Atlanta Hawks. As many of y'all know, I do. But we met like it was an awesome game to cover. It was an awesome game to be at. So, RJ, how you doing, man?
This is probably, I said this earlier in the season, this is probably the biggest Georgia Tech win since I've been a fan. Obviously, early in the season, we thought the Florida State win was going to be huge. Turns out that win doesn't really matter, but this was huge for Tech culture.
Yeah, because you beat an actually good team.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was it was an amazing atmosphere to be at. Georgia Tech fans deserve their flowers for the atmosphere they created on Saturday. It was really, really good. Like that, it was impressive to see. Like there was a little bit of Miami fans there, but the atmosphere and the energy in there was really, really incredible. It's probably the best win Georgia Tech's had since I've been covering the team for SI. This is my third year doing it, so. But yeah, just a really big win all around, and we're coming to you a couple days after, but weren't able to get an instant reaction up on Saturday. But we're here to break down everything and kind of what it means going forward, because now the past few weeks, especially after losses, we've kind of been talking about the big picture and what does this do for the bowl hopes. Well, now that's taken care of. Like we know that they are going to a bowl game. No matter what happens the rest of the way. That doesn't mean nothing matters anymore, because clearly these last two games can mean a lot, and especially just what it does. But that'll be kind of more of the stuff we focus on instead of if they won't make a bowl game. And to end the opening on a bit of a down note, yes, we are going to talk about what happened at McCamish yesterday with North Florida just taking it to Georgia Tech. Just kind of a little bit of a damper to start the basketball season, but we're gonna hit the good news before we hit to the bad news first. So there's a lot to unpack here with this. I want to just kind of going off the cuff a little bit. Brent Key absolutely outcoached Mario Cristobal in this game. It was not remotely close because I try to look at things from both sides and view it through a Georgia Tech lens and Miami lens, and and we have to I have to admit I was wrong. Like I was absolutely wrong about this game. I picked Miami to win. I know you did as well. Like we were both wrong, and I'll definitely take the L on that one. But so going into this game, we thought Haynes King would play, but the way Brent Key talked after the game and, on 680 The Fan today during his radio interview, he said it truly was like they were going to see how he warmed up, and they did not know he was going to go until warm-ups on Saturday. It sounds like that was the case. And then, Pete Thamel said the same thing on Saturday morning and said, hey, if he can't go, it'll be Philo. The thing is, we saw both of them because it was pretty apparent early on that Haynes King was not going to be able to throw much. And I will say early on, in the very beginning of that game, that did worry me because, I worried about, okay, obviously when Haynes is in, they did throw the ball a little, but it was mostly, there was some play action where he hit Jackson Halls in the flat. And they got some stuff going. And then in obvious passing situations, Aaron Philo came in. So I was worried that, okay, maybe it works for a little bit, but then, Miami's got some talent on defense. And, if all you're having to plan for is one thing, it's that. But Georgia Tech had to thread a needle with this kind of game plan, and they absolutely executed it to perfection. We talked about it with David on the show Thursday. Miami has a problem tackling, especially on the edge and in space. And Georgia Tech and Buster Faulkner and all those offensive coaches, they absolutely exposed that. They really got after Miami in that way. The offensive line, I cannot say enough about the job that they did, because again, a good portion of that game, Miami knew you were going to run the football, especially when Haynes King is in. And then, okay, take the first drive of the game. After that, you lose your top running back. Jamal Haynes was out of the game. And so, it became that much harder. But again, it was success after success. And yeah, you had some 3 and outs mixed in there, but you also had a 10-minute touchdown drive that that really set the tone there. And what was it? Second quarter. It was early on in the game, where you were playing the kind of game we said they needed to play. They needed to limit the amount of possessions that Miami had, and Miami did have some offensive success in this game. We'll kind of get into that. I was kind of wanting to touch on the offense, but my main takeaway from this was this staff did a phenomenal job game planning for this game and getting them ready, and just executed the plan to perfection.
100%. And I feel like other schools are starting to become envious of what Georgia Tech has built. Because obviously, college football, there's the big talk about culture and which teams, built the best culture around their players. I've said it the entire year. I think Georgia Tech is in that conversation because we have never seen a Georgia Tech team, probably throughout the time you've been covering Georgia Tech, throughout the past, decade of Georgia Tech, that is this tough offensively. Early in the year, I was saying you can't have Haynes King run the ball more than 10 times in a game. I'm completely putting that to rest. Like he was the leading rusher against Miami, had 20 rushes. Like he was the focal point of the offense. He could barely even throw the ball. But the ability to push through injury, push through a defense that wasn't really amazing, but you were probably outmatched in terms of personnel. Like these are all very highly touted, recruited guys in this Miami defense. You just played extremely well on offense. You were perfect with your plan. And I think it just goes to show what Georgia Tech has been building. I kind of have this spiel after every win, but this is like by far the biggest win. And Haynes King is the guy. He is the Georgia Tech quarterback. There's nobody else you'd want.
Look, I just like that was a gutsy performance by Haynes King.
Yeah.
Saturday. Like that was he was basically their lead tailback pretty much. I mean, that's basically what he was acting as. Like you said, he carried the ball 20 times, had 93 yards, had a 30-yard rush in the game. Like it wasn't huge chunks every time, but they were staying ahead of the chains the majority of the time. And look, they racked up 271 yards rushing, 5.6 yards per carry. Like they obviously they ran the ball 48 times, only threw it 16. It was just fantastic all around. Just and the execution, you didn't have just a ton of big plays. You had the Jamal Haynes run at the beginning. Like I said, Haynes King did have a 30-yard run towards it that actually wound up not meaning anything. Like they did that at the end of the first half, and then Brent Key kind of pulled it back and just went into the half, and was okay with it, even with Miami getting the ball to start the second half, which I thought was a little odd. But there wasn't a ton of negative I can really say about this game. I mean, even trying to like nitpick. I don't really think there's anything I can seriously nitpick. I mean, to me, the game was won on 3rd and 4th down. Really, Miami is the number one 3rd down offense in the entire country, and Tyler Santucci's defense held them to 3 of 10, while Georgia Tech was 9 of 14. And I don't know that there was one bigger than Aaron Philo finding Bailey Stockton on 3rd and 18. And, because that drive stayed alive and they got a touchdown out of it. Because, if you have an incompletion or anything, like especially given the special teams adventures we've all seen, like there's a chance you either go for a field goal and you miss it or it's blocked, which is in the realm of possibility, again, given what we've seen this year, or you just punt the ball away and play field position. But that was one of the biggest plays of the games and came at a time when you had to have there wasn't, much to say through the air. I mean, Philo was 5 of 10 for 67 yards and a touchdown. Not that he played poorly, but it was just, he wasn't asked to do a whole lot. There were some drops also in this game that kind of prevented some things. But I just thought the execution on offense, again, you had, knowing what you knew about Haynes and kind of his limitations a little bit, he was going to be mainly used as a runner, which we talked about it before the game. We were curious as, okay, if he's out there, how much are they going to run him? Because, how much do you want to risk injury? And it's that was basically, if he was going to play, that was the way you had to use him. He just wasn't going to be much use throwing the football. And they kind of had to thread a needle a little bit, like I said, and they did that. They just executed at a much higher level than Miami. And they just outcoached them, from start to finish. They absolutely outcoached Miami in this game, and it showed just on every level. You ready to move over to defense?
Yeah.
So to me, the defense just made plays when they had to. Like, you look at the stat line, and it, again, giving up 436 yards. I wrote about this, in a piece over at SI. Like, you never want to give up 436 yards of offense, no matter what. But that was the most. Like, Cam Ward finished. He was what, 25 of 39, 348, 3 touchdowns. Like, that looks good if you just look at it on paper. He was, what's the right word? He was flustered, I think, for a lot of that game, just with the different things they were looking. And look, Warren Burrell didn't play in this game. Like, Georgia Tech was down, arguably their top cover corner, which kind of nobody knew about before the game, and then he just wasn't playing at the start of the game. So that was a big challenge. Obviously, we know Georgia Tech's had a problem with sacks. They ended up sacking Ward 3 times in this game, especially towards the end. And then again, like, fourth downs, like, Miami was 1 of 4. We talked about third down just a little bit ago, but I thought that, Miami got the ball down in Georgia Tech's territory quite a few times and came up empty. They had the first, very first play, or was it second play of the game for them, which was very odd. I'll say I don't even think he meant to throw it to his tight end. And the way it looked, like, and again, I could be totally wrong, so apologies if I am. The way it looked from my view in the press box, and then when I went back and watched it on replay, when I went back and watched the game yesterday, it did not look like he was throwing to Elijah Arroyo at all. And I know Arroyo got it in his hands and then took it the distance. And then, Miami come back in the next drive, had a field goal. But I'll also highlight, like, a couple of, again, where I thought Ward was off or looked flustered a little bit. That second drive, so he had Sam Brown, the Houston transfer. He overshot him by maybe like 2 inches on a throw to the end zone. And then he missed a wide open Restrepo in the end zone, I think, on third down. It was third down, I think, that drive. And then they had to settle for a field goal. And then, like, Miami's offense was just kept out of the scoreboard for a while. Like, I don't think they scored again until the second half, when they cut the score to 21-16. So, again, I just hadn't seen Cam Ward look that flustered pretty much all season. And again, it wasn't high execution all the time. Like, there were some, the Restrepo touchdown. Like, I mean, the guy just got beat. Like, Ward they just made a great play. But also the fact that, like, they held Miami to 88 yards on 24 carries, which Miami is a very good rushing team. And again, this to me comes back to the coaching. Like, given the way the game was going, like, there were times when Miami looked like they could run the ball a little bit. Like, I think it was maybe the first or second drive of the second half where Martinez was getting some carries, and he got him out past midfield. And then Miami went for it on 4th and 1 and had that weird bootleg play that just did not look good to me at all. I don't know, just that I think Georgia Tech, again, it comes back to execution. Like, the defense just executed in the high leverage situations a lot more than Miami did at the end of the day. Like, Miami had some good moments, like in early downs and some other things, but when it came to the high leverage situations of third and fourth down, like, the defense for Georgia Tech absolutely stood up, and it was all parts of it. Like, the defensive line, like, we all, if you've seen Cam Ward play this year, he's very good at keeping plays alive, and they were able to keep him in the pocket. And if he did break contain, there was one fourth down, when they got down there, like, near the 20 or something. And then, he tried to run around and then, got bottled up and had nowhere to go. Obviously, the Romello Height strip sack at the end of the game. Like, in the high leverage situations, like, Georgia Tech just executed at a much higher level than Miami.
Yeah, and it was that too, and it was a lot of guys who, usually don't even start or get, an insane amount of playing time. Like, Omar Daniels, I think, stepped up in a huge way in this game. Was everywhere on the field. But it wasn't just the secondary. It wasn't just the linebackers. I think the defensive line was crucial because there was no point in time in this game where Cam Ward felt comfortable. And you were saying this is probably, the most flustered I've seen Cam Ward this season, and I would agree. Besides, maybe like the first half of the Duke game, but overall in a full game, obviously the stat sheet still it is what it is, and this really wouldn't show on a stat sheet either. But this is probably the most injuries / penalty worthy plays I've seen in a game ever. Like, it seemed like there were penalties every other play. Georgia Tech probably had 6 injuries. Miami had a few. but I think the ability to step up, have a lot of guys that don't even normally play to a certain extent, go out against the best offense in the ACC, one of the best in the nation, the best in the nation statistically, offensively, and do what you did is really incredible. This really is not the best defense that Miami has played all year, but Georgia Tech played like the best defense Miami has played all year.
Yeah, and like I said, it just came down to beating them in the high leverage situations. Like looking at Miami's drive chart, they had touchdown first drive, the field goal, then you force Miami into a punt, then they get down to Georgia Tech's 23, turn it over on downs, then you force another punt, then the opening drive of the third quarter, again they get down to Georgia Tech territory. That's where they had the little weird bootleg play where I think he was supposed to hit the halfback coming out of the backfield, but Georgia Tech covered it up pretty well, and he didn't have anywhere to go with it. And then they had a touchdown to Isaiah Horton in the end zone, and then again they get down to Georgia Tech's 28 at the start of the fourth quarter. Turn it over on downs. Then you had their Restrepo touchdown, and then of course the Romello Height sack fumble. So again, like it was bend but don't break. Like that was pretty much the mentality: is hey, you might get some yards on us, but when you get down there in the red zone, we're going to bow up and you are not going to get anywhere. And we talked about that with David. Like it's red zone roulette. Like, okay, you can get down here, but okay, when the field's condensed and when you got to make plays, okay, we can force you to get out of your game. And they did just that. And like a lot of credit goes around. Like there was good coverage at times. Like the defensive line I thought played really well. And again, the main thing I just wanted to come out of this game is like they just absolutely out-executed Miami and outplayed them in the highest leverage and highest pressure situations. And to me, that comes down to coaching. And look, for some of the struggles, whether it's on offense or maybe some frustrations at times, Georgia Tech has an excellent pair of coordinators who did a great job game planning for this. And like it gives you a lot of confidence going forward, when they can – we'll see how healthy they can really be with 2 games left. The good thing is like it's another bye week time, and they don't play again until next Thursday. And then obviously you play again the fall. You have another extra day to get ready for Georgia at that point. Maybe I don't know if it's really an extra day, but you're not playing for another 8 days after you beat NC State, and then you're playing on Black Friday against Georgia. So you've got some time to heal up, and we'll see kind of how everything goes, but. Just an all-around, just a very well-executed game plan, and it goes just back to the coaches. Every single one of them, was Brent Key, Buster Faulkner, Tyler Santucci, just every single coach putting that game plan together and then going out and being able to execute it.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about the atmosphere at Bobby Dodd. That was the most rocking like Bobby Dodd has been in a long time, and I think everything is starting to come together. Like last year, it was obviously a historic year for Georgia Tech, winning the Gasparilla Bowl. Again, I understand that's not a huge bowl game. For Tech at the time, like that's a big accomplishment. Like making a bowl game in that year, now being bowl eligible this year when you have arguably one of the hardest schedules in college football. You play Georgia, you play Miami, you play Notre Dame. I just think this was a landmark win, and I think this is the Brent Key moment. His coordinators showed up, he showed up, and the players believed. Like there was not one player on this team that were like, oh, we're extremely outmatched. I think everybody heading into the matchup had the idea of chance in this game, and it did.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't disagree with any of that at all. And I guess I guess let's talk about going forward now. Okay, this we've been talking about it for a while. Again, we were both wrong in predicting Miami to win, but we thought there was a chance it could come down to possibly beating NC State to get into a bowl game. Okay, now it's how much if you beat NC State, then you improve upon last year's regular season record, and then you have a chance to finish with 8 or possibly 9 wins if you upset Georgia in that game. And there's a lot of things on the table now, so it's the thing they're going to have to do now is keep going. Like they still have they have to finish the season. Like again, it can't be a you beat Miami, you've made a bowl game, so you had a tough schedule, so it's all good now. Like it has to be. We've seen them come off big wins before and then kind of followed up with a little bit of a dud at times, and against some teams, frankly, they should beat. We both thought that they should beat Syracuse, and they didn't. They had a tough time executing against a good Louisville team, but there was times like that, and you had to deal with the Haynes King injury against both Notre Dame and Kyle Eford injury against Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. So now the thing is, you get a 5-5 NC State team who NC State doesn't play this weekend. They're coming off a loss to Duke. They're also very banged up, and they've been very disappointing this year. So now it's okay. Can you follow up this big win? You could finish 5-3 in ACC play for another season like that. That would be huge. Like if they do that, you're 10-6. You would be 10-6 in the past 2 years in ACC play, and some things go right for you here and there. Who knows what happens, and then we'll see what happens. Georgia's kind of floundering, I guess is the way to put it right now. I don't want to get too much into that game right now because there's still a little ways to go before we get there. But like this looks to be like the one thing I will say is it looks to be the most beatable or the best chance Georgia Tech's had to end this losing streak to Georgia since they last won it in 2016. So, but now it's getting healthy during the bye and just coming out and responding well to all this love and attention you're getting, which at different times the past year or so has been a little bit of a struggle. But we'll see what happens. But just put a bow on it. Like I can't say it enough. This coaching staff did an incredible job getting them ready. They executed it in the situations when they had to, and with the injuries and losing Jamal Haynes and Haynes King being limited, like you had to thread a needle. There was one way you were going to win this game, and they did the game plan to perfection, and a lot of kudos should go to them. Bowl eligible for a second straight year. Nobody should take that for granted. Like especially given the Jeff Collins years and everything. Like getting to a bowl game is still a big deal in college football. No matter how many playoff games we have, no matter what happens, like getting to a bowl game is still a very big deal. And it's the first time they made consecutive bowl games since 2013 and 2014. That's a big deal. And it given recruiting is going well, there were a lot of recruits at the game, and just it's been a good recruiting class in general. Like it's just stuff to build on, and things are still trending in the right direction for Georgia Tech. And Saturday was really a big proving point for it.
We talked before the podcast about how the third year of a head coach, you can normally tell what the trajectory of a program is. This Georgia Tech program is on a great trajectory. We've seen other Power 5 schools, I guess fall from grace is the word, but like you mentioned, this is the first time making consecutive bowl games since 2014 and 2013. I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but if you can go out and you can win a bowl game, that would be the first time you win consecutive bowl games since 2004 and 2003. Like it's been a while since Georgia Tech has been at this level. You're recruiting very high. You're fighting, with in-state players very well. You just got the first 5-star since Calvin Johnson. You are on a very good trajectory. The thing is, you just had to keep going. You can't quit. You still have NC State. You still have Georgia, and there's a lot left on the schedule for Georgia Tech to do. Like they could end the season with 8 wins.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you could, and again, we're not sitting here predicting they're going to beat Georgia, but it's like it's a possibility. Again, we're going to get into that at a later point in time, but it was a very good Saturday for Georgia Tech fans. Like getting a win of that magnitude, and then also seeing the Bulldogs lose was, I think it was a very enjoyable Saturday for Georgia Tech fans. But anything else on the football game?
Nope.
Okay, let's talk about basketball. All right. So I'm trying to keep, I think with things like this, like just trying to analyze things as they are. This was a really, really poor performance yesterday. Like there's no spinning it. And we hinted that they needed to make sure they took North Florida seriously because, we said, hey, they beat South Carolina. I don't know how good South Carolina is exactly, but like South Carolina is a Power 4 team, probably right about your level. Like you need to take North Florida very seriously. I'm not saying they lost because they didn't take them seriously. Like I'm trying to, where do I want to go to start this one? That was awful defense yesterday. Like that, it was horrendous, disastrous, whatever adjective you feel comfortable using. I mean, North Florida shot 54%. I mean, they only shot 29% from three, but still, like they got up a really high number of attempts, and especially just perimeter defense was just a joke yesterday. Like it was just really, really bad yesterday. Like North Florida didn't have a hard time scoring. There was a huge free throw discrepancy. I mean, even if you hit all 12 of them, like, you were 6 of 10 from the free throw line, where they were 22 of 29. Like that's a big issue. What are your thoughts coming out of yesterday? Like it's kind of you want to see things start off well and see things go in the right direction. We talked about not having a UMass Lowell type loss, but it's not a great loss. Like again, I do want to preface this by saying, if you are looking for a ray of hope coming out of this game, and again, I'm probably grasping at straws a little bit here, but there's a chance North Florida is pretty good for a mid-major type team. Like I said, they beat South Carolina. They're 3-0. Like there's a chance you look back on this. Even if Georgia Tech, say, doesn't make the NCAA tournament, but they finished with a better record than they did last year, and you can tell, hey, this is a better team. You look back and say, man, North Florida is just a really good team, and because sometimes this happens. Like sometimes like a team like North Florida can pull upsets earlier in the year, and you look back and say it's a really good team. Like I was telling RJ before the show, I remember, everybody remembers the year Florida Gulf Coast was a 15 seed, was first ever 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. They pulled an upset earlier in the year against Miami. That Miami team went on to win the ACC regular season title and tournament title. I am in absolutely no way saying that's what Georgia Tech is going to do, but sometimes you can look back at these games and say, hey, we faced a really good mid-major team. Like that's what it came down to at the end of the day, and they just outplayed us. Like offensively, like giving up 100 points to anyone is not good in college basketball, in my opinion. Giving up 105 points to North Florida is very bad. And again, like I know I sound like I'm grasping at straws, but I'm trying to I don't want anybody to just completely abandon hope and just completely abandon this team 2 games into the year. Although like it is a bad loss. Like I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm not trying to say anything different. Let's just see how things play out. Like they do play Texas Southern tomorrow. They have Georgia coming up, and they have some tests where we're really going to see like, okay, what's the trajectory of this team this year? Like it doesn't look great after yesterday because like Georgia Tech trailed by a lot in this game. Like this wasn't like North Florida squeaked by them either. Like they kind of led commandingly in the second half. But just kind of what are your thoughts on this game yesterday and kind of moving forward?
Yeah, to me, like starting off defensively, it wasn't even that North Florida had a ton of open looks. It was just there was a lot of non-competitive defense. Like whether it's late coming in on a shot, and you get a foul late, like that's why the free throw numbers were so high. You just weren't in position against a team that doesn't really, I don't want to say they don't have height. They don't have height to the level of other teams you're going to see in the AAC. You were out of position in times. You couldn't really defend in transition. It just, I don't think it's a give up point though. I think, like you said, I think North Florida could be very good. And they face Georgia before Georgia Tech does, so could probably get a good read on how good Georgia is in that game as well. I don't know what this means for the team moving forward. I just think it's one of those early games that we really won't know a lot on either side, North Florida or Georgia Tech, on what their teams are until probably later in the month.
Yep. Again, like I know after losses like this, the general reaction is to set your hair on fire and it's time to panic. And again, we could get to that point at some point in the season if things really start to turn the wrong way. We could look back on this and, yeah, North Florida might be good, but we should have been sounding some alarm bells here. We just have to see how the season plays out. Like, it's just yesterday was a really bad performance. Like, I'm not trying to dance around that at all. I just think we need to be patient and see where this goes. It could be bad. See if the team can improve, because Jaden Mustafa and Darian Sutton didn't play yesterday, and again, that probably doesn't change the game. Like, they're going to be out for a little bit. I think Mustafa is out 7 to 10 days, I Bleav. But we'll see where it goes. But definitely a dejecting loss early in the season, and it was not pleasant to cover. I will say that. Anything else on this?
Nope.
Shout out to the women's team. They beat Georgia State the other night. They're off to a good start this year. They have some. That team has some talent. Like, I'm interested to see how that plays out the rest of the year. But that's going to do it for us on this episode. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Like usual, guys, if you're a first-time listener, first time, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know whenever we have new content up. Like the video, helps us out a ton on YouTube. If you're following us on podcasts, wherever, Apple, Spotify, wherever, just be sure to leave us a review. That helps us out a lot. And we appreciate the reviews that we do get. We're always looking for ways to improve the show, and this is a show for you guys. So we always look for ways we can do that. So just follow us on there, leave us a review, and that would help us out a lot. So we will be back later this week. I know there's no game this weekend, but we're going to have more content out this week. Obviously there's a few basketball games we're going to talk about, but also we're going to have some football talk as well. So we'll definitely be back. But until next time, I appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you.